We, in our 68 years, have never laid off anyone. Some companies use people as the way in which they manage their numbers. And it's a very easy thing to do, but the numbers have no values. If you look at it, and it's kind of like, hey. Now what we would do is if our business was going to be fundamentally different, we wouldn't go out of business. We would do what we needed to do to sustain the business. Our competitors had laid off people. Our competitors had stopped their supply chain. But by the end of the year, our business had recovered pretty well. We were off about 20%, but we didn't lay off anybody. We didn't affect anybody's pay or compensation. Those were our values of having a long view. Value in relationships is what guided us. I was going to talk a little bit about Henny Penny, who we are, what we do, how we do it. And it's just an example of a company and how we go about doing business. And then getting through that, I'll shift to just taking questions. I'd much rather talk to you about what's interesting to you versus me telling you about my passion, Henny Penny. So we can get started. So Henny Penny. So we started in 1957. We're a 68-year-old manufacturer. And the founder, he and his wife had a restaurant in a little town called Eaton, Ohio. And they were known for their fried chicken. And he was a tinkerer, a problem solver, and was trying to figure out how to make better fried chicken. And he invented the pressure fryer. And that was taking kind of like a pressure cooker that you might use with water and did it with oil to be cook faster and better fried chicken. And he had a young son at the time, and he was just looking for kind of a whimsical name, and he had been reading the nursery rhyme about Chicken Little, and the sky is falling, and one of the characters is Henny Penny. There's Henny Penny, Turkey Lurkey. I'm glad he picked Henny Penny. But that was the origin of our name. And in the 90s, they were like looking, and as we had grown a lot, an agency came in and said, you should change your name to something, more modern. And so they went through this whole, program to try to figure it out. And then they came back and said, no, just keep the name. And the nice thing about the name is, for people that haven't ever heard of Henny Penny, for many it sounds familiar. They're not sure why. They think like, maybe I ate there once or whatever. And so, but I can't tell you the number of times when I've traveled around and they're asking me if I go into a hotel or whatever and say, hey, what's your email address? And I'm like, oh, it's rconnelly@hennypenny.com. And they're like, what's Henny Penny? I was like, it's a company. They're like, it sounds like a very nice company. I was like, it is. So we are headquartered in Eaton, Ohio, which is about 25 miles west of Dayton, Ohio. We've been employee-owned since 2015, 10 years. Now, I could spend a lot of time just talking about employee-owned, and it's a very interesting model. And but it's as we get into this, I am probably like everybody here. I'm a very big capitalist, and I support all the different forms of capitalism. I think there's a place for public companies, private equity, family businesses, founder businesses, any number of ways, and I think they all have a role. What we are is 100% employee-owned, which is about 1% of the company. So we're very different in this. So it's not like all companies are like that, but this is just our model, and we can talk a little bit about what that means to our employee owners. So to give you a sense, we've got we're on 75 acres. We're out in the middle of the cornfields, much like I was driving here. And on the 75 acres, we've got about 650,000 square feet under roof. Of the 1,000 people or so, probably 600 around 600 are hourly production. And then about 400 that are every other job that you imagine that you need for a company, from finance to marketing to engineers to IT. And so that makes up kind of our main headquarters. We are based in Eaton, as I mentioned. We have a facility in Suzhou, China, outside of Shanghai. We do manufacturing in China, mainly for China. We went there not because many companies, we've been there since for a little over 20 years. And we went there not because many companies went to China because they wanted to reduce their labor costs. We went to China because one of our largest customers, KFC, said, "You need to be here." So we were like, okay, I guess we'll go there. And so we've been there for about 20 years. And so we're supplying China and Asia from that facility. We also have a facility in Paris. And that really services our sales and support for Europe and the Middle East. So I'm fairly certain we're the only people that have linked Eaton, Paris, and Suzhou. Yes?
I have a question. Like, what companies are you guys affiliated with, like restaurants?
Which ones?
Like, for instance, you said KFC, like,
yes.
Like Popeyes, Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I'll show you. Thank you for that. So what do? We do frying, we do ovens, and we do holding. And holding's a big part of, if you've ever been in a restaurant, how you can handle the rush. And so that is, those are the areas where we're trying to help. And our customers are high volume, the busiest kitchens in the world. And so these are our customers. So we have the quick service, which is like McDonald's. That's where you don't have servers. You know, you go up and order, and then you have the fast casual that's kind of defined by, like, say, Chipotle, to sit-down restaurants. It's interesting, like these, to give you a sense, like McDonald's. You know, a lot of people say they don't eat at McDonald's. About 80 million people a day eat at McDonald's. Think about that. That's hard to get your head around. 80 million people every day in around 40,000 restaurants around the world. And you know what's pretty amazing? You can get a Big Mac, whether you like a Big Mac or not. I've had a Big Mac in Beijing, in Moscow, in Rome. I've had them all over the place. London and Eaton, Ohio. And they all taste the same. You don't know how hard it is to do that, but it's an amazing kind of way in which they've, through different supply chains, cultures, they're able to replicate that. And so anyway, these are customers, and all of our customers, for us, what we make is, I describe it this way. If we were like making cars and whatever, we make the world's best bus. So if you're moving 60 people, we are the way in which to do it. But most people only need a car. And even if you could afford it, you wouldn't want to buy ours. So we're helping the busiest kitchens in the world, and we are mission critical. So if you go into Chick-fil-A and the fryer's down, that's a big problem. So what we do is we design these equipment that's very reliable and can cook, and can cook, and can cook, and can cook, that it recovers quickly. So that's kind of what we do. You know, the joke at McDonald's is their milkshake machine, their flurry machine is down so often. There's a website that will tell you if the McDonald's you're going to, if their flurry machine is working or not. That is embarrassing and annoying to McDonald's. But for us, we can never be down. And so that's what we do. We make these highly reliable products that allow them to produce the food to their specification, and then if there's any issue, we wrap around. So that's what we do. We're very specialized. Most restaurants you go into, they wouldn't need our stuff, and you couldn't find it. But if you go into a lot of these places, that's what, you go into Chick-fil-A. Does anybody like Chick-fil-A? Everything coming out of Chick-fil-A is out of Henny Penny. We also own a company in Bellingham, Washington called Woodstone. And Woodstone makes the hearth pizza ovens that you might see in California Pizza Kitchen. But they also make, if you go into Chipotle, every Chipotle, the grill where they're grilling their chicken or all that, that's made by Woodstone. So again, they're a very interesting company that we run separately, but it's also owned by Henny Penny. So this is our philosophy. And at the center of this, what we're trying to do is positively impact people. Now, I can tell you most forms can't say that of business, because really at their center are their owners. We don't have owners per se. We don't have investors. We just have our employee owners. And so if I was at a Kroger couldn't put in the center, like their number one thing is positively impacting people. Not that they don't try to impact people, but it would be disingenuous. Number one for them is their shareholders. Doesn't mean that's the only thing they think about, but that's number one. If it was a family, that would be number one. And that doesn't mean they don't take care of people, but because of our model, I can tell you what our focus is impacting people. And that starts with our employee owners and our suppliers and our community. And that's what we wake up every day. And the way, we're focused is in impacting people positively. Here's my belief. The first thing I could do that would really impact people quickly would be have a best place to work. If you could go into your job and you feel valued and appreciated, you feel like you're growing, you feel like you're making a difference, that is a great recipe for you to feel good right away. And if you don't have that, there's almost nothing that you can do. So we start with, how do we create an environment that's the best place to work? We have great facilities and whatever. One of the things we do, and a lot of people it may sound corny, but we try really hard not to hire jerks. Because who likes to work with jerks? Does anybody? I think only jerks like to work with jerks. But a lot of companies will feel like they have to put up with a jerk. They're too good, they're this or that. We don't believe that. We think they cause more disruption, that you can't be a best place to work if you're around jerks. So that would be one tangible thing that we try. Now, sometimes they sneak in, but they don't last long because we believe relationships matter. So the first thing we do in kind of our formula of impacting people would be creating a best place to work. Then I tie it quickly to this. We've got to be a thriving company. Because if you're not a thriving, growing company, you really can't be a best place to work. If you're at a company that is shrinking, it is no fun. Because it's about cutting. And everything you're looking at is, how do we cut? If you're growing and thriving, that's all about, opportunity. It's opportunity to advance. It means you have resources. You're then just trying to figure out what to do not what we can't do. So what's that mean? It means our people that we're taking good care of, that we got to wake up every morning and see, how are we taking care of our customer? We've done business with Chick-fil-A for 55 years. We've done business with KFC for like 48 years. We have these long, enduring relationships. What is that? You know what I think that gets us, though? Is not the future business. It gives us an unfair opportunity to understand their problems and opportunities. And if we don't solve them, and somebody else will, we'll lose the business. And I'm not talking like for a nickel or something, but if somebody comes in, it'd be like for us, we use a lot of steel. If somebody came into us at Henny Penny and said, hey, here's this new technique that will allow us to use half the steel, and it works even better. And we did that. And a steel supplier might say, gosh, we've done business for 30 years. What are you doing to us? Like, I'm not doing anything to you. I wish you had solved this for us. I didn't know. And so that's where I'd just say and I have what I hope is a healthy paranoia, might just be paranoia, of how we satisfy our customers' names, or our customers' problems and issues, so we can, I don't want Chick-fil-A to outgrow us, or McDonald's to outgrow us, or KFC to outgrow us. And that takes having all of us trying to be our best and understand what their problems are today, because they're really different than what their problems were a year ago or 5 years ago. And if we're not changing with them, we will be the museum piece. So anyway, the model really has to be, how do we take care of our customers too, for this all to work? The third area is well-being. And I think this is the right thing to do. And I think it's also makes the most sense. And that is, we want to help people on their well-being journey. What does that mean? I hired a director of well-being 6 years ago. And I can tell you, at Henny Penny, they were all like, what is that? But what we're looking at is, I wanted to be more strategic about how we impacted people's well-being, their physical, their mental, their financial. What I noticed, we did like most companies, we have our insurance folks, and they come in and they're every year they're incenting people to try to become healthy. One year they'll have like, we're going to give a pedometer to everybody. We're going to have walking challenges, and we're going to have prizes. Well, what I noticed was the people that showed up were the ones already active. They were like, can I win more than once? Can I run? It's like, and the person, on like their 13th Mountain Dew for the day, was not doing anything. So it's like, gosh. And typically the biggest challenge that I saw were probably people from 30 to 45 that didn't see what was happening. It hadn't really manifested itself outwardly yet, but they were doing a lot of harm to themselves, but they couldn't really tell until they were diabetic or lots of different issues. So what we were looking at was how might we affect people's physical health? And so what we looked at is, we also found in doing the research, a lot of our hourly employees were not connected to the healthcare system. They just didn't trust it, had never really had the access. They would go to the emergency room when something bad had happened. And otherwise it was like, hey, my grandfather went to a doctor and he told him something and then he died. So we don't do that. Just general, like, I don't trust them. So we thought, what if we put a clinic on site? And so we have two major healthcare systems in the Dayton, Ohio area, and Kettering Health was one of them. We talked to Kettering Health. They'd never done it before, but we said, we want to have a clinic on site at our manufacturing and operations. And they said, sure, let's give it a try. And we opened that in September of 2020. We actually accelerated it. It was, we were building on, and that was a crazy time, as you know, when the pandemic began in March. We were supposed to be going in like January of 21, but we accelerated. We asked if they could send their nurse practitioner starting in March. So for the beginning, it was just we had a nurse practitioner walking around, and then in September of 2020, we opened our clinic. In November of 23, we tripled the size of our clinic. And so any of our 1,000 employees can see on site a nurse practitioner or a mental health therapist on the clock for free. And with that, it still takes time to get people to trust it and to do it. But it's having an amazing impact. We've had people that have discovered they had cancer. We've had people working on their own health. And so I'm going to get too deep into this tangent. It's something that we feel will have a long-term impact on people, and just providing the access and awareness and the comfort. And our nurse practitioners, we've added another nurse practitioner, and they are embedded. They're not just traveling nurses. They're embedded. They're Henny Penny employees, and they're developing the relationship. So part of it was the physical health, also mental health. I don't know if, no one here, I bet, isn't impacted by mental health, either themselves or their family or their friends. It is a huge challenge that we all, was exacerbated by the pandemic. Not to go too far off, I'm on Dayton Children's Hospital Board, and this is the same in every county in this country. You know the number one reason for admission into Dayton Children's Hospital? It is suicide ideation, planning, or attempt. The number one reason for admission. It's we have our CEO, she just celebrated her 13th year. She's amazing in what she's done. When she joined 13 years ago, it wasn't even a category they tracked. But so we're trying to help people, and I'd say if you look at any demographic, you look at any age, all are having enormous issues with mental health. We also have financial counselors that we're providing to our employees for retirement planning, but also just helping on check to check. If you live check to check and you get a raise, you know what's likely to happen? You're still check to check. It's mostly about the outflow. But it's a huge issue, and it's one that creates a lot of shame or whatever, but we're trying to figure out how we can help people through education and just knowledge to, if they choose, to help them with that. So well-being is something that, again, we believe strongly in. If we can help people with their well-being journey, however they need it, we think it'll be better. It's the right thing. It would be better for their life. It will help them avoid misery, but they'll also be good employee owners. And so that's what we do. The last area is ownership. And we have this unique opportunity where all of our employees, everyone, gets shares every year. And the better we do, the better we all do. And there is this part of it where these shares, I I really won't go into this because it's kind of confusing, but they're really not shares like control, but they're economic value that's real. And every year, all the employees get new shares and the company is revalued. And so within that, what's it mean? Well, what it's meant for our employee owners is in the last 10 years, is if they've been here over the 10 years, well, actually, if you just take all the statements of our employees and you add up the value, there's over $100 million in their hands since 2015. And you'd say, gosh, where would that have gone? Like, well, to the owners. Where is it? So what's that mean to, just, a typical employee? Well, if they were making $60,000 a year, they would probably have in their account about $160,000 that they put zero in. And it's just every year. It kind of continues. The better we do, they revalue the company, and then you get new shares, and then your value of the shares of how you go. That's one way. We also have every year a company performance bonus, where it's just a bonus based on the profitability of the company that everyone gets. And during the year, everybody knows what our target is if we're performing to this. And then we have 3 all-employee meetings a year where we gather all employees, for sure 3. One is in February when we look back on the prior year. We celebrate how we did, we reviewed how we did. I'll get to you. And then we give some awards, peer-nominated awards, and then we announce the company performance bonus. And no matter what, it's great, because even if it's less, it's still more than anybody else was getting for other companies or whatever, so they get their company performance bonus. And again, it's a real tangible way of the better we do, the better we all do. It's not just like something people say, it is that. Then in June, we have our Owners' Day, when we look at kind of the longer view of the company. We announce the share price, and then people get their statements that show their value for this. And that is in a retirement plan. That's an ESOP, but that's another thing. And then in November, we have a huge, we feed everybody an amazing turkey dinner. It's on the Friday before Thanksgiving. We have chefs. That's another thing. If you're ever in the Eaton area, if you're ever in the Dayton, Ohio area, I'll have you come by. You can come by, and we've got great chefs. So I have to run a lot just to not be enormous. So they cook this amazing meal. We have everybody. We serve over 1,000 people, and retirees come back, and we're acknowledging people that gave back to the community. And they're peer nominated, and then we bring them up and then donate to their cause. And it's all about giving thanks. And then they love that, because then as soon as that program's over, they get the afternoon off before Thanksgiving. So this opportunity of ownership is real, and what you get, but it also is a responsibility. And your responsibility is how you would want to show up. If we're all together and somebody is slacking, not doing their job or whatever, well, you don't want to just leave it up to your, the boss or something. It's kind of like, well, that's not okay. And so it has a co-accountability, because the better we do, the better we all do. And that's a level of, it's a different kind of culture that is created within this. I spent way too much time on this. Let me see where I'm. In March 11th, 2020, you know what happened then? As the World Health Organization declared the global pandemic. We brought our team together on March 13th, Friday the 13th. We didn't know what it was, but it sounded like, well, this is going to sounds pretty serious. So we got a cross-functional group together, and what it said was this: I don't know what this means. I don't know what we're in front of, but we're going to take care of each other. We're going to take care of our customers, and we're going to take care of the community. And I want us to look back 6 months. I didn't know. You know, they were talking about bending the curve in a couple weeks. I was like, in 6 months or whatever, that we look back and we're proud of the decisions we made. And then we just started. On Monday, we came in and we had, in Ohio, we had Governor DeWine. He came on at 2 o'clock and it was wine with DeWine. And we're sitting there and he'd be like, okay, businesses need to take everybody's temperature. You know, we're like, anybody have thermometers? How are we going to go do this? And just kind of took every decision like that. In April of 2020, we were off 80%. Our business stopped, like a lot of businesses. We not only had days when we had no orders, we had negative orders as people were canceling. But we've had a very long view. And here's what I knew. McDonald's, KFC, Chick-fil-A were not going to go out of business. That they would thrive again. I didn't know when, but they would thrive again. And for people that were like, well, it could be the end of the world. I was like, well, we don't need to prepare for that. Why don't we prepare to thrive and support them? And so that's what we did. We, in our 68 years, have never laid off anyone. And we're fortunate in that, but we just take a long view. Some companies use people as the way in which they manage their numbers. And it's a very easy thing to do. I really don't like the numbers people that are just looking at numbers. The numbers have no values. But if you look at it and it's kind of like, hey, now what we would do is if our business was going to be fundamentally different, we wouldn't go out of business. We would do what we needed to do to sustain the business. But what it is it's the last thing we're going to do. And so by the end of the year, our business had recovered pretty well. We were off about 20%. But we didn't lay off anybody. We didn't affect anybody's pay or compensation. And in February of 21, we gave a bonus because we could. I only say that in that those were our values of having a long view. Value in relationships is what guided us during that time, and we were fortunate in how it turned out. And then in 21, things really took off. And we were ready. Our competitors had laid off people. Our competitors had stopped their supply chain. If you wanted to get a fryer in 21, it was like our competitors were like 52 weeks, which is kind of like, well, that's not even really, what do I do with that? We were still like at 4 to 6 weeks. We basically doubled in 21 and 22 from this process of just kind of taking care of our people, taking care of our customers. This you can see a little bit of the Henny Penny campus. You can see like so. When we opened up this down here, our employee well-being center, and over to that side is where the clinic is, and we were getting ready to open up, and I was in with the nurse practitioners, and I was like, they were just moving in. I was like, gosh, this is like a real clinic. She's like, Rob, it is a clinic. It's not like a real clinic. And we've got a full fitness center, 24 hours. Again, we have 3 shifts, so it's available to all employees 24 hours a day, all year round. The clinic and the fitness center that's got locker rooms and everything are not, they're only for our employees at this point. I hope to make them available for families. And that's how we built it to do that, but right now we're still working through getting employees to use it. So anyway, it's kind of going too deep. We're very involved with the community. We believe it's not only the right thing to do, we see it as a responsibility. We live in the community. We want to support the community. We try to get people to move. People are moving. We're getting people to move from all over to come amazingly to Henny Penny out in the cornfields. But we need Dayton to be thriving. We need to help it with its culture, its social services. It's all the things that if you want to go and you come to that community, and that what would make you stay or come would be that you have all the services you need. You have all the different things. It's a vibrant community. So we believe it's important to give back and to be a part of the community. And this was when we announced the ESOP, when we became employee-owned in 2015. So, for any that want to know, these are just some like kind of my fundamental philosophy about, as you're looking forward and kind of looking into what you want to do. And I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was, leaving college and just going through. But I would just say a couple things for you. I think your family, your relationships are the most important thing. Don't leave them. Don't leave them because of your work. I've seen so many people that have achieved success by the measures of financial, and they're divorced multiple times, their kids don't speak to them. They have achieved amazing success, but it means nothing if you're by yourself. Don't forget. Don't be proud of how you are and what you're doing and how you do it. So I consider my family, I have 3 daughters, and 2 just got married last year, and 1 just became pregnant. We're excited for in December having our first grandchildren.
Congratulations.
I am very excited. I've heard the reason you have kids is to have grandkids. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what I've heard. I would just say this: as you're in school or graduate school, here's kind of the bad news. When you graduate, it doesn't stop. You need to be continuously curious. When you see somebody who's old, besides I don't really feel old, I know I am old and I've got the gray hair. But what really defines old in my mind is someone who's decided to stop learning. And you see it. When what do you think about, when you're younger? You're a sponge, you want to learn and be curious. And you need to continue to be relevant, whether it be with your culture or what you're doing or music or anything. I would just say this: you need to continue to be curious and learn and not think it's over when you've graduated. I also would advise this, and this can be a hard one. Seek feedback. The best performing people, the best performing organizations are driven by feedback. It's a mirror, it helps you. You know who doesn't get feedback? People that melt down when they get feedback. They get so defensive. And then you know what happens? People stop giving them feedback. They don't want to deal with it. But you can learn. And it doesn't mean everything in feedback is perfect. But you need to seek it. And sometimes it stings. And sometimes your reaction is to be kind of defensive. But just kind of think about it and think about how it can make you better. And be clever how you get feedback. I would say this: if you went to your grandmother cooked you dinner, and she said, "How'd you like my dinner?" What are you going to say? It was great. Even if you went to Chick-fil-A drive-through right after. she might think she was asking for feedback. But if she really wanted feedback, a way in which she might have would have been to say, hey, I'm taking a cooking class, and I'm really working on my cooking. Would you have like 1 or 2 tips you might give me on how I might have improved this meal? What was she doing? She gave you permission. The first time you weren't really sure if she really wanted to know anything. So I would just say this: be clever about how you seek feedback and try to find it and use it. It will help you be the best. I think there's a lot of things that, whether you're dependable. Here's one thing I've thought about to help our organization, our people, and for you to think about. When you're doing anything, what if you think about being a role model? What if you judge when you are doing something and you're doing it? Would I be proud of this? Am I being a role model? A lot of people just think I just got it done. But what if you put it in the frame of trying to be, I want to be a role model? If you're going to be a role model, you're going to be fine. Doesn't mean you're always going to be there, but people will notice. Most things we do, people know what to do in most cases. You know what the hard thing is? To do it. That's the big thing. It's never really a mystery of what to do. The discipline of actually doing it. So anyway, it's something to think about. Last kind of off into a lot of tangents. I haven't even given you time to ask any questions. Happiness. A lot of people talk about happiness. Here's my suggestion. And I see people that are frantic. There's a lot of reason to be frantic right now. A lot of noise in the world, But when somebody's really frantic, I've got a couple things for them to think about. First is I'd say, okay, don't spend so much time on social media. Don't watch so much cable. And get outside and help people. Notice the birds are chirping. Like the world is going on. But try to give back. There's a lot of reasons why during the pandemic it was like, gosh, there's all these problems. Today, it's like, oh, what's going on with the tariffs and whatever. But in the end, it's kind of like, hey, let's, we can be paralyzed. Or as Bill said earlier, we can just solve problems and just figure it out and move forward because things are still going to be happening. So how do you just keep moving? I think the other thing, and a lot of people, again, this isn't necessarily, none of these things are new. I really urge you each to be kind. Be kind. It's as easy to do, and why not? All of us are walking, and most people don't know the shoes that we're walking in, the issues that are going on, their home or with themselves. Just give a little grace and be respectful and be kind. You will feel better. And they will be too. Be the opposite of the jerk. And it doesn't mean that's not like, hey, we're asking for performance or slacking or whatever. It's just, in the end, just kind of an element of, are you kind? Can you be respectful? Can you do that? You will feel better. I believe it, and you'll make a better place for the people you're around. Some people, unfortunately, feel like being a jerk is a really good way to get ahead. It's like, oh, be kind. My last thing is kind of I went to this leadership seminar in 2012, and one of the things was just had us really think through, like, what are you trying to do with your life? I guess in the Simon Sinek, almost my why, and how I try to conduct myself. And I'm not perfect, but what I came through was this: It was savor the day. Savor the moment we're in. Whether you know it or not, it's pretty quick. Time will go. But just savor it. Whether I'm here with you, or on Saturday I was in Hamburg, Germany, or wherever I'm or with my family, try to savor those moments. Not always be looking. Savor this time we have while always learning. Just being open and curious while always learning for a better tomorrow. I am an optimist. I try not to have rose-colored glasses on. I try to have a reality with it. But I believe tomorrow will be better and that we can be there. I love when we talk about, oh, this generation, oh, this new generation. Oh, God, it's terrible. I don't understand their music. It's like, that's what we've done for generations. Every future generation is a problem. So whatever generation you're in, you'll be able to say that about the next generation. But we're going to be fine. I think we're continuing to evolve in the most positive way. Are there lots of problems? Yes. But I'd rather be alive today than any other time. I'd rather be here than any other place. Can you find lots of bad? Absolutely. Who wants to live like that? Let's find the best and let's make it better. Sorry for, I don't know, that was off the exact thing with Henny Penny. But I appreciate your time and attention, and we'll answer anything about anything. Yep.
So how does their business model, in terms of the employee ownership, how does it compare to like another business similar to it, like kind of like Publix?
So Publix is an ESOP. So are you asking how an ESOP is different from, let's say, a public company?
No. Like for instance, how like with another ESOP, like what are like some specific maybe differences in how they're managed or run, or is it an identical model?
No. So that's a good question. So with an ESOP, there's lots of variations, and I would how they're run. Like so for us. We became an ESOP on January 8th, 2015. The day before, the chairman of the company was Steve Cobb, who owned the company in total, and it was his gift. And it was really a gift, even though he sold it. But it was a gift to the employees and the community and our customers that Henny Penny he was trying to figure out, because we had been this company, family business that had a long view and valued relationships. And I'd say a long view is typically what is the difference from a shorter term company. And so we had this, and he was trying to figure out how could Henny Penny continue to be Henny Penny 50 years from now. And he knew how it would not be if we were sold to private equity or whatever. It wouldn't be bad, it'd be just a totally different company. And so he came across the ESOP model that we looked at. And so then when you have an ESOP, you can manage it in lots of different ways. But the day before the ESOP, he was chairman, I was CEO. The day of the announcement, he was chairman, I was CEO. The day after, he was chairman, and I was CEO. We managed the company in the same way. And in the employee ownership, this is where it gets, it will kind of get your head hard to understand. They aren't shares like owners. They don't gather their shares together and then come together and say, like, control. And so the management of the company is by the management team. That is, and the board is who appoints the CEO. The board is in control. And they have the CEO and the management team. But an employee isn't like, hey, Rob, let's kind of look at the books. I want to see what everybody's paid. I want to decide all these different things. It's like, no. That's not part of what you are getting. You're getting the economic value, and that's managed by the board.
What would be the difference between like that and something like a cooperative?
Yeah, I don't know. really. I would just say this. It's the ownership structure, and then again, I can kind of go deep into this, but it is no one really owns Henny Penny. It's owned by a trust. And these economic units are given out, and they get that, but it's not control. And that's real dollars. But it's almost like if you have wherever you live, if they have an art museum, and if somebody said, who owns that art museum? You'd be like, no. You'd probably have to do research. But who's the steward of that? It's the board. And the board is not going to sit there and say, this would be a good time to sell Picassos. Let's sell them. Because they wouldn't get the money. It would be, what are they trying to do? And this is what we're trying to do as an ESOP. We're trying to make it as good as we can today and better tomorrow. And that is the fiduciary responsibility is the board, and they hire the CEO and whatever. So I don't own Henny Penny. No one owns Henny Penny. Now we get this benefit. So how it's actually managed is how we do that. Now you could have some that are like, hey, we're going to manage it a different way. And you could probably manage it any way you want, just as long as you're complying with the fiduciary role for the company and the employees. Yes?
Yeah. From the way you talked about the company, I can say that you're a good corporate citizen. But I just want to ask a question about your corporate social responsibility, about the scope. If you have a particular sector that you focus on, say health or maybe infrastructure, that you give back to the society, and maybe the jurisdictions that you give back to the society, whether it is where your companies are well established or maybe outside just.
So let me make sure I understand. Like when we're engaged with the community and where we're giving money and resources, how we decide who we're giving it to. So that's a great question. So we are focused on food insecurity. And so we're doing a lot that has to do with food just because of our business of being with food. We also are in education. And so the universities and even the high schools, we're trying to help in education. But I would also say this, we're also looking, we don't want to be so narrow because we're helping the community. We still want to be like being able, like if somebody has the Little League team, that we're not saying, well, we're only doing these two things, we're not doing that. So we have a person, actually a couple people, that their entire role is engaging with the community, and they are looking at opportunities, because we get asked for money all the time. And what you can't really judge it on is it a good thing? Pretty much they're all good. You're like, this is, so what they're looking at is kind of what kind of impact does it make sense for us to do it, and how can we impact that? And we start with, in our county, we're in a small county, and it's rural and very poor, and so we do a lot there, but then we look in the broader, and we're looking at human services, we're looking at culture and arts, and they are bringing forward to us kind of this. And we give in three ways. We have a Henny Penny Foundation that is funded. We have our corporate checkbook that we just write from every year, and we budget. And the other is in 2017, we started a Henny Penny Employee Foundation. And the entire purpose of that was to help people understand philanthropy and giving back. So the employees raise all the money, and then we match that money, and then they also are involved they get grant requests in the community, and they then make the decision and give back. And that we found that to be the biggest thing is, again, if you're seeing that, you're seeing the need, you start really feeling fortunate for all the different things. So, and they're much broader. We're not trying to say, here's what you can or can't do within that. But I would say broadly, it's food insecurity and it's education, and then kind of the, and we also follow our employees where they are. If they're volunteering somewhere, we're typically, if they're on the board there, we're gonna support any organization that our employees are into. So it's kind of intentional, but it's pretty broad too.